All right, so my name is Karen DeLong. I'm an associate professor at the University of Tennessee, and I'm going to be talking about drivers of beef purchase behavior across countries. So the results I'm presenting today originate from a couple of different of our output, a couple of different papers. One has been published and one is very close to being published. And so I'm going to put those up as references at the end of the presentation. If you guys want more information, you can have access to them. And so the objective of what I'm presenting is in China, Japan, the UK, Germany, and Mexico, we wanted to determine how frequently consumers purchase beef, which beef attributes they consider important, where consumers most often purchase beef, the demographics of beef consumers in these countries, and the factors associated with beef purchase frequency. So we conducted Qualtrics surveys, and they're administered to Qualtrics panel of beef consumers in 2021 and 2022 in Japan, the UK, Germany, Mexico, and China. And the numbers in parentheses are how many respondents we had to these surveys. To design the surveys, this was a lot of work. We did a lot of background information on the different markets we're about to survey. We had experts from each country, talked to attachés, et cetera, in industry. And these surveys are what Dr. Grebitus and Dr. Gao are going to present on later also. So this is good background information for their presentations that you're going to hear next. Participants had to be 18 years or older, residents of the respective country, and consumers of beef to take the survey. And all the surveys we varied slightly based on the information we found out about the respective countries. We also analyzed the China data separately than the other countries for a few different reasons. First, it was a pretty different market than the other countries. Next, we also surveyed 3 distinct cities in China, the large cities, because that's where beef is being consumed. We didn't include rural areas. So we only surveyed beef eaters in Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou. In the other countries, we all did nationally representative surveys. China survey was also done in 2021. It took us a long time to figure out that market. And I'm not saying we figured it out, but we did a lot of information digging to do our survey. The others we all did in 2022. Dr. Grebitus is from Germany, so she's our German expert, and Dr. Gao is from China. If we didn't have Dr. Gao on our research team, we wouldn't have been able to pull this off. In all surveys, we inquired how often consumers in each country purchase beef, with 1 equals never to 7 equals more than 3 times per week. In all surveys, we also asked what cuts of beef they purchase, where they purchase beef, which beef attributes they consider important when purchasing beef, and the demographics and attitudes of the beef consumers. Jumping right into the results, this is Chinese beef purchase frequency. You can see that the consumers in Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou, their purchase frequencies are very similar. And if we sum up these 2 categories, in China, over 80% of beef consumers there are purchasing beef at least weekly. If we look at beef purchase frequency in the UK, Germany, Japan, and Mexico, you can see this gold bar. Mexican consumers are purchasing beef the most frequently. 41% of them are purchasing it 2 to 3 times per week. If we sum up these 3 categories, Mexican consumers are purchasing beef at least weekly. 80% of them are purchasing it at least weekly. In the UK, 66% of beef consumers are purchasing it at least weekly. That number is 61% in Japan. Germans are purchasing it at least frequently at 46%, at least weekly. Then for the Chinese descriptive statistics, this is a percentage of beef eaters who have purchased this type of beef, this cut of beef. At least 90% had purchased steak in these 3 cities. It's important, these are the cities. And then the least purchased cut of beef in these cities were rib and brisket. And then in terms of point of sale, with 1 equals never, 5 equals always, beef was being most purchased at supermarkets in these 3 cities, and then wet markets, and then online. Apparently, a lot of consumers in China purchased beef online, but still supermarkets and wet markets were ahead of that. And very, very similar across all 3 cities, all these results are. And then in terms of attribute importance when selecting beef, you can see the results. They're all pretty similar. We have some significant differences, though. Actually, price was the least significant, least important, but I mean, that's at like 3.7. And then food safety was the most important concern. that Chinese consumers had, and that's probably because there's been, foodborne illness outbreaks, et cetera, in China. So safety was actually the number one important attribute, and then the others were still important: growth hormones, country of origin, et cetera. And then for Japan, UK, Germany, and Mexico, this is the percentage of beef eaters considering the attribute important when purchasing beef. Here, price is the most important if you average it. Surprisingly, in Mexico, Mexican consumers consider these things the most, more important than the other countries. And Mexico, they had date of expiration is very, very important. Again, this is probably related to foodborne illnesses, that sort of thing. This next slide is production process attributes. I want to spend a little bit more time here, so I went quickly over the other one. So of course, with the UK and Germany, because they have hormone bans on beef, they actually surprisingly, I guess I was surprised. I thought it'd be higher. So this is the percentage of beef eaters considering the attribute important. Only, less than 70% in both Germany and the UK considered it important. I thought it'd be higher based on everything I've read. And then surprisingly, Mexico, again, they rated these different attributes as, pretty more important than the other countries. And then Japan always has the lowest importance for these different attributes. Country of origin, here we have, this is the only place that Mexican consumers rate it way lower than the other countries. And I would assume that's because they're only getting their beef, if it's foreign beef, from Canada and the United States. And so they like us as neighbors. That's the way I perceive that. So that's a good result for us. Our neighbor Mexico is friendly with us, only 35% considered country of origin important, whereas the other countries is over 50% because they're getting beef from a lot of different markets in these countries. In terms of point of sale, from 1 equals never to 6 equals daily, in these countries, supermarket shopping is where they're getting most of their beef. With the exception of Mexico, they mostly get it from the butcher. And then there's also discount stores are pretty popular in Germany. Dr. Grebitus can tell you more about that. So overall, of the Chinese beef eaters surveyed, 50% purchase beef at least 2 to 3 times per week, so they purchase it frequently. Those who purchase beef most frequently purchase steak, flank, shank, and brisket. They purchase from wet markets and supermarkets. They're younger and had higher incomes. That's as expected in what we see with the Chinese market. Younger people and people with higher incomes are the ones consuming beef and in these cities. Those who purchase beef less frequently in China, they considered price and quality as more important factors. So this might indicate that they consider beef expensive and not as high quality as they prefer. This is the quality result we'll find in the other presentations too. Quality is important. It doesn't matter if you're a high or low income country. Quality always came up as very, very important. Everybody wants beef that tastes good. And then in terms of Japan, UK, Germany, and Mexico, Mexicans purchase beef the most frequently of these groups 2 to 3 times per week. UK, German, and Japanese consumers purchased it once a week. Beef was purchased most frequently at supermarkets and from butchers. And Japanese consumers who consider price important purchased it less frequently. British consumers who purchase hormone-free production important purchased it less frequently. Mexican consumers who considered grass-fed important purchased it less frequently. But then German consumers who considered brand important purchased it more frequently. So conclusions and future research: beef is purchased differently across the study countries, but there's still a lot of similarities. And examining how these preferences change over time is really interesting. So we have a study that's done that. Dr. Grebitus is going to talk about this study, but in the UK and Germany, we've done this survey 4 times over the last decade, and it looks like preferences, they definitely change over time. Dr. Grebitus is going to talk about that. So it'd be great to be able to do these studies over time and see how purchasing behavior changes over time, especially in our emerging countries. And then if you want more information, like I said, this will be, Dr. Grebitus said this is all going to be on our website. We'll give you access to that after the presentation. And this is where the papers are that this originates from. Have any questions, feel free to email any of us.